She sighed. She could do with a new wardrobe instead of having to have her dresses remodelled and wear them until they fell from her back in ribbons. If only Lawrence wasn't so mean with her allowance, she thought, handing it out in dribs and drabs. If she'd been a boy, like her other brother Jeremy, she'd be able to manage her own money instead of depending on Lawrence to hold the purse strings, and hold them far too tight for her liking. She held the dress against her body and gazed in the mirror. The colour complemented her auburn curls and brought out her jade green eyes. She wrinkled her nose, pursed her lips, blew out her cheeks, and screwed her face into several contortions while she thought about it. Perhaps if that girl Daisy could lower the neckline, add some beading, shorten the sleeves and take some of the fullness out of the skirt, it would be passable. She sighed, laid it on the bed, and got on with dressing. She'd have to take her aunt with her to the park, but that wasn't a problem. Doris Templeton, her father's widowed sister, had been installed in the hotel as chaperone. She could twist Aunt Doris around her little finger. Downstairs, a blast of stifling heat and the smell of fried bacon and tomatoes greeted Daisy as she walked into the kitchen. Mrs. T, the cook, lifted the lump of dough she was kneading and banged it onto the table, sending a flurry of flour into the air. "So what did his lordship want this morning?" she asked, her displeasure clear on the fleshy features of her face. "One of the guests had an accident at last night's party," Daisy said. "She tore her dress, and Mr. Lawrence asked me if I could mend it." "Puh!" Mrs. T pounded the dough with her fists. "Over and above, that is. It's not your job to mend guests' clothes. They take advantage, and that Miss Clara's no better. Treats you like her personal lady's maid." Her heavy breasts wobbled with indignation. Daisy shrugged her slender shoulders. "She makes it hard to say no," she said. "Anyway, I don't mind. Miss Clara's been good to me." That was true. Daisy had been taken on as a chambermaid, but thanks to Miss Clara, she'd been made up to head of housekeeping with 2 girls working under her. Mrs. T gathered up the dough and divided it between the ready-prepared baking tins. "I still say they take advantage. Always putting on airs and graces. Jumped-up nobodies, that's what they are." She huffed and turned to put the loaves into the already lit oven. "You'd better not let Mr. Lawrence hear you call him his lordship. You know how that rankles." Mrs. T's features hardened. "Trade, that's what they are. Came from trade, working in trade, and they'll die in trade. You can sprinkle sugar on a turd, but it don't make it chocolate." Daisy suppressed a smile. Mrs. T had worked for the gentry and never let anyone forget it. But Daisy liked Mr. Lawrence and his brother Jeremy. They were well-educated men of the world. It wasn't their fault their grandfather had gambled away his fortune and left them to fend for themselves in a world where trade was looked down upon. Mrs. T was right about Miss Clara. She was spoiled and did take advantage, but it wasn't her fault either. She'd been brought up with expectations, and it was only when the old man died they discovered the real state of his affairs. A bell sounded in the distance. "That'll be one of the guests wanting breakfast." Mrs. T glanced around. "Where's Ruby? She should be here by now." She tutted. "Rack and ruin. The place is going to rack and ruin." "I'll get out of your way then. I only came in to wash my hands." Daisy smiled to herself as she left the kitchen. She knew the Fitzroys were struggling to keep the hotel open. If it closed, they'd all lose their jobs, so she was prepared to do whatever it took to help, even if it did mean staying up most of the night, making, altering and repairing dresses for Miss Clara, so she could attend the soirees that brought in customers. Mrs. T may have a brusque tongue in her head, Daisy thought, but underneath that rough exterior, she had a heart of gold. Everyone had been upset lately. Just 6 weeks ago, the hotel had been full with guests arriving for the King and Queen's coronation. When it was postponed, due to the King's illness, some of the planned celebrations had gone ahead, although scaled down. But many had been cancelled.